Texas GOP are doing the most to get people to go forth and multiply. That is only if you're from a certain group of people, of course. A new Republican bill in Texas proposes massive tax cuts for people who are willing to have oodles of children, but of course with this catch. In order to qualify for the tax benefit, couples need to be heterosexual, never divorced, and their children born or adopted after their date of marriage. LGBTQ couples, single parents, divorced parents, and blended families will not qualify for full benefits. And these aren't just small benefits, mind you. The tax breaks are pretty sizable. HB 2889 would provide qualifying couples with a 40%, that's right, 40% property tax reduction if they have 4 children, with the tax break increasing for every additional child. Now, couples with 10 or more children would pay no property tax at all. Just getting started? A couple that meets the requirements laid out by the bill get a 10% reduction even before they have children. Isn't that nice? Yeah, so Representative Bryan Slaton, who introduced the bill, said this: supporting Texas means supporting Texas families. Texas will start saying to couples, get married, stay married, and be fruitful and multiply. But of course, it's only if you are living, quote unquote, morally right in your life, according to Texas Republicans. In his press release outlining the contents of the bill, Slaton suggested that the proposal had been modeled after laws implemented in Hungary and Poland, which provide a virtually tax-free existence to large families. Now, the bill isn't exactly a surprise coming from Slaton, a former minister who spent his time in office proposing anti-queer bills and trying to ban minors from drag events. Yeah, it seems to be right on par. Cenk.
Yeah, so this is a twofer. You got white replacement theory and anti-LGBTQ ideas in the same bill. Congrats, okay? So hey, white people and good people, not the bad people who are gay or divorced or something like that. We need babies, babies, babies. They're obsessed with making sure they don't get replaced. By the way, if you wanna know where the replacement theory came from, it's actually from the 1930s. The Nazis came up with it, and they used to chant, and we saw it in Charlottesville. The Jews will not replace us. Now, oftentimes it's the immigrants will not replace us, but now they also say it about every faction of the left that they could possibly think of. But here, at least they're being explicit, so we appreciate it, because Ben made this point earlier. The biggest culprit in this is the mainstream media, who helped the right wing gaslight us, and they'll get people, the reporters will get offended when I say Republicans hate gay people. They're like, oh, how can you say that? That's true. We're not allowed to write things about Republicans that are true. We have to change all the facts so that it's not factually correct, but politically correct, because we do not want to offend the feelings of Republicans, the most precious thing in the world. Well, here's a bill proposed by Republicans saying we do not want gay people to have equal rights. We want them to be inferior and get less rights than us. So tell me which part of that isn't hating gay people? All right, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, so in order to really understand how this all operates, is that capitalism depends on hyper exploitable classes. And in times like what the United States is dealing with, internationally, globally, we're sort of losing influence, and the United States is really struggling to prop up its existing system. And whenever you have a situation like that, you get a situation that kind of looks like what exists under feudalism, where you need to create a hyper exploitable class and a privileged class. And so, I don't know if you ever watched those old timey TV shows about the feudal era, where it just seems like they're random rich people that are just not royalty, but they're hanging out along those mansions, basically paid to be friends with the royalty. And that's basically exactly what they are. Because in some sense, they're meat shields from the poor for the rich people. Except for in the United States, the whole idea is to create this political class of people that are privileged, and thus are going to vote in the interests of wealthy capitalists. Well, the wealthy capitalists then turn around and drive wages incredibly low for everybody else, make the cost of living low for everybody else, because not only is this predominantly going to affect straight couples, but also it's predominantly going to benefit rich straight couples, right? It is going to benefit people who have property. They're the people who benefit from property taxes, right? And if you can afford to have a lot of children, you can afford to have a lot of children, right? And so this is incredibly privileged folks, and it's really about going to like a slice of the upper middle class and saying, hey, I know that theoretically you are a worker and you should be joining a union and doing those things, but what if we give you these privileges? So instead of joining unions and organizing with those radical leftists over there, you just agree with us and you make life harder for queer people, you make life harder for Black and brown folks, right? So that we can pay them lower wages, or even better, falsely imprison them, under like pretense laws, like the war on drugs, all these sorts of things, so that they can be working as slaves in our prison system, right? And like that really is like the core essence of what this bill is doing. That's why they are so willing to push these anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, because even though some of the wealthy people are a little uncomfortable, ultimately, the conspiracy theories are very helpful to push these policies that create these hyper-exploitable classes that make it easy to drive people's wages down through various avenues of marginalization.
Yeah.
I would also say modeling this policy kind of after Hungary, it's like, get out of here. We just watched Hungary kill democracy, and also its governments continue to really harass independent media. In addition to the fact that they've passed a bunch of anti-immigrant and anti-LGBTQ plus bills, like this is not a great model to employ. Why would you use Hungary as a model? But then again, it is Texas, so that is kind of also their vibe too. Cenk, what were we gonna say?
Yeah, you got to give them credit though for one thing in this bill. He put divorced people in there. Now, is that a good thing that you should also punish divorced people? Of course not, it's absurd, right? But at least he's going back to old school discrimination that was based a little bit in the Bible, right? So in the Bible, being divorced is just as bad as being gay. Actually, eating shrimp is just as bad as being gay, right? And so I'm surprised he didn't put Red Lobster in there. When he goes to Red Lobster, you're also gonna lose your property tax write-offs, etc., right? But they used to, a lot of folks don't remember this, but in this country as well as in a lot of countries, the right wing, and it's always the right wing, used to include divorced people in the group of people that you were supposed to hate. The problem became that there were too many Americans that were divorced. So they're like, well, we don't want to hate ourselves. They're like, can you give us a different target? They're like, oh yeah, great, no problem. Forget divorced people, just gay people. Right? Then it became, well, okay, gay's a little hard because there's a lot of Republican donors who are gay. Okay, trans people, right? And it just the target keeps moving, but the mission is always the same, hatred, right? And so last thing, guys, here, the difference between the left wing and right wing way of thinking is the right wing thinks if you're these different categories we don't like, gay, immigrant, whatever it is, you're immoral, okay? And this guy is at least consistent, divorced, okay, you're also immoral, right? Whereas the left wing thinks, no, if you discriminate against people who are divorced or gay or a different race, that's immoral. Because we think that everybody should be equal, we should all have the law apply to us equally, we want justice for all. That's the American creed. And the right wing says, no, we want bills like this, where justice is just for the people we like, and the people we don't like get injustice, and we think that's moral. Well, look, that's for everybody to decide, right? If your view of morality is that like being born a certain way, whether it's a skin color or gender preference or whatever it might be, makes you immoral, well, there's nothing we could do to help you because you've decided that you're gonna hate those people based on who they are. And to us, you're deeply immoral. Just so understand that. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.